5 miles per hour. The 2 p.m. advisory on your screen. It is moving west-northwest at 17 miles per hour, and the pressure is now down to 993 millibars. Location has not changed too much from when we last checked it. I mean, it is moving quickly, but what I mean by that is the angle that it's moving in. It's still hovering due west with a little bit of a northward component, and then that northward component gets stretched out, elongated, and it takes basically a northward turn by the beginning of next week thanks to a weakness in high pressure to the north side of this system. Notice that forecast cone, which shows where the center of this storm is likely to track. The center typically stays within this cone throughout the entirety of its lifespan, and that cone is exclusively well off the east coast of Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Just needing to be keeping an eye on this because regardless, a strong hurricane passing off the east coast of the United States will be enough to stir up those waves and create some very large swells as well as some deadly rip currents. Probability of winds of 40+ miles per hour, increasing in some spots, decreasing in others. We're looking at San Juan with just a 20% chance of that occurring. In fact, I believe that's even 10 with this brand new update. Those winds a little bit more consolidated with this storm center as it starts to take that turn. And then we look out to the Turks and Caicos Islands that are also awfully close to those stronger winds. We'll likely be seeing gusts briefly at or above 40 miles per hour with this system, but either way, the strongest of the winds hovering near this storm center by the weekend, and then that turn begins to materialize moving into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The weakness and high pressure pulling it up to the north and then steering it back out to sea. Going to move to the latest on the computer models. They're very clumped together and consolidated out near Bermuda. We're looking closely, and in case you're wondering, Bermuda, this little island, you can barely see on the screen because it is very small. It's difficult to get a landfall in a spot like Bermuda, and it has happened. Remember, Ernesto last year was able to find that little island out of all that body of water to push on shore. Either way, a close pass would be more than enough to create a little bit of surge and perhaps some very strong winds for that island. That would be 6, 7, maybe 8 days from now, depending on how quickly this storm takes shape and takes that turn. So plenty of time to watch it, and large swells are expected regardless. Up and down the east coast, specifically up near the Carolinas, but potentially as far south as the east coast of Florida. We will be monitoring that in the next day or two and should have a more concrete forecast on how large those swells are going to be. Here's the latest from Tropics Watch, the Fox model materializing with satellite and radar imagery, how things could look moving into Tuesday. This is basically level with Tampa at that point and then starts to take a bit more of that northward trajectory. In this case, you have a very strong hurricane, but if anything, this is even a pinch east of the models that we were just showing on the screen a moment ago. A storm that tracks a little bit closer to the coastline would amplify those already large swells. The farther east it goes, and potentially that high pressure and the very strong storm taking that northeastward turn, that would also take some of those larger swells with it back farther away from the United States, but potentially could impact what we see and occur out in Bermuda, where again, thousands of folks live on that island. This is, nothing to sneeze at with regards to these impacts. We have to pay close attention to them. That storm moves into a weakness in the ridge, and by the end of next week should be completely pulling off to the east and northeast, back away from the coast. Big picture stuff here. Apart from just Erin, we are watching one other spot, this one in the western Gulf. We were watching it earlier this morning, having as high as 50% chance, a 50% chance delegated by the Hurricane Center to develop before quickly pushing onshore in South Texas. The National Hurricane Center sent the hurricane hunters a flight within the center of that disturbance to try and figure out A, where that center likely is, and B, how far along that development is looking. Well, what they found is the center is much closer to the coastline than what they initially had thought. That gave it just a few hours left over those warm waters, and it already didn't look like it was going to materialize into anything. They dropped those odds to 20%, and in the most recent update that just came out, they've dropped those odds even farther, now down to a near 0% chance of development. That X marking the spot as this is pushed onshore near Brownsville. A lot of thunderstorm activity still near the center of it, but nothing like what we were seeing yesterday out in the Bay of Campeche and Western Gulf. And in general, this should be a no-go, just a big rainmaker for that area. Deep tropical moisture pushing on shore. This is the Fox model showcasing that, those powerful winds pushing it along the eastern coast of Mexico and Texas. Again, bumping up the winds, bumping up the rain chances, but unlikely to see any significant severe weather out of that storm. Here's the 2025 Atlantic season naming list. We've knocked Erin off the list. Fernand would be the next name up. We're going to have to wait a bit longer since that system did not materialize out near Texas. With regards to where we are in the season, we are still on that steep climb that'll take us to the peak on September 10th. That is the climatological peak of the Atlantic hurricane season. And for us, that doesn't mean we let our guard down once we get beyond that point. If anything, here in Florida, we have to be vigilant all the way through the beginning to middle of October. That's when, climatologically speaking, some of that activity slides closer to us rather than farther away from us. And then we get into the end of October, November. In general, activity tends to trend down substantially, and that's when our season comes to a halt by the end of November, wrapping things up on, I believe, the 30th. Here's NOAA's latest forecast for the hurricane season. Still at a 50% chance of above normal activity. That does not mean you here in Florida are going to see a hyperactive season. All that means is we're expecting more storms somewhere in the Atlantic than we normally do in a given year. They've bumped those odds actually down to 50%. It was at 60% earlier, a 35% chance of a near normal season. So if you really think about this, they're providing us with an 85% chance of a near or above normal hurricane season. Those are their latest thoughts as of about a week ago. In the month of August, these are the hot spots. Now, I'm not saying this is where we'll be looking at this year, but in past years in August, this is where we typically see tropical storms and hurricanes begin to find their footing. Unsurprisingly, Erin in one of those hot spots and expected to take that turn similar to how many past storms have just north of Hispaniola. As we look off in the Gulf, that orange shading also getting a bit brighter. That will only get brighter from here entering into September, where that activity grows across the board. Now, infrared imagery showing some of those thunderstorms across our state earlier. SkyTower radar picking up on some storms on the east side of the state out near Daytona Beach. But for the most part, we only have some spot showers from Inverness down to Newport Richey. We'll take a closer look at the radar and your 7-day forecast coming up. And welcome back. We're looking at high temperatures today. This is as hot as things reached earlier this afternoon, if not right now. We'll check in with the current temperatures here momentarily, but how about 97 for Brandon, 97 in Bartow as well, and boy, some hot spots on this map. 94 in Bradenton, 95 in Tampa. In general, it has been hot, and the humidity has not helped. Today, it's been even hot enough to prompt a heat advisory for not all of us, but a good chunk, I'd say a sizable portion of our viewing area. Let's jump into that map here and get a better idea of the spots impacted by this heat advisory shown in that peach coloring. It includes all of our counties apart from Sarasota County. This also does not include DeSoto or Highlands counties. This expires at 7 p.m., but the reason these have been issued is because the heat index could climb to about 110 plus degrees in many different spots, and that is more than enough to keep those advisories in place for the rest of today. I would not be shocked if when these expire at 7 p.m., they go ahead and consider issuing new ones for tomorrow's forecast because things are not going to get too much better. Here's downtown Tampa. I want to highlight this on your screen. How about a heat index of 110 degrees? Speak of the devil, that is the exact number that was listed by the National Weather Service. 94 here in downtown. Gorgeous view. It looks like Raymond James Stadium with partly cloudy skies and, of course, some bugs. Whenever it gets hot out, I've noticed they love to get right up in the camera and get their airtime. So we seeing plenty of bugs over the next few days. Flipping back to how temperatures are lining up in other spots right now, these are current temperatures. So Bartow and Brandon, we just looked at that 97 high. This is how it actually feels as you're listening. Winter Haven at 96, Haines City at 93, Frostproof at 95, and just a whole slew of 90s from Clearwater down to Bradenton and Sarasota. It has been rough. Other spots seeing the heat inland. How about Orlando at 95 degrees as well? Upper 80s down south, 91 in Pensacola, and 93 in Panama City. The heat advisories, I just wanted to get back to this map to show you that they do extend all the way up through Panama City and Tallahassee. These advisories, again, expiring at 7 p.m. today. Limit the amount of time you spend outdoors if you don't have a way to cool off yourself, especially rigorous activity. You got to stay hydrated in this heat. We've had hot days, but it's heat like this that can especially sneak up on you because it feels much warmer than what our true high temperatures are in the afternoon. 103 degrees is that current heat index in St. Pete. We just looked at Tampa at 110, but Sarasota and Naples not far behind at 103 as well. 114 degree heat index in Panama City. Insanely warm. The Sunshine State living up to its name. Even though we have partly cloudy skies in a lot of these spots, the humidity will be on the high side through the weekend, but rain chances will be more suppressed, similar to what we're seeing now. You're probably asking, well, we've seen some showers. We've seen daily storms. What do you mean suppressed rain chances? Typically in the summertime, we get daily showers and storms. But in this case, the coverage has dropped a lot. You'll notice we haven't had severe thunderstorm warnings to talk about these past few days, and it's because a lot of these have stayed on the weaker side. We will just be tracking on and off shower and storm chances for the next few days. The coverage closer to 40% through the weekend, and then heading into Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week, it looks increasingly likely that because Erin is tracking well off to the east side of our state, that on the back side of that system, we're going to see some drier air funnel in the upper levels of the atmosphere. While it's going to feel hot and humid down here at the surface, we'll at least drop those rain chances even more by the middle to end of next week. That's a double-edged sword. Your plans are not going to be impacted whenever we do see those chances drop, but you don't have a lot to cool you off later on in the day. SkyTower radar frozen here in time. I'm going to put this into motion to give you an idea of where those storms are, and the big theme that you'll see with these is they're hardly moving. Most of these have been near stationary today because they're not very strong upper-level winds to put these into motion, and that just makes it a nightmare to try and track on SkyTower radar because the moment one goes up, it can start moving erratically based on where other showers in the area form and where it starts to weaken and fall apart. I'm going to get you a closer look at some of these, quickly punching this up on the screen if I can. First up, we're going to head down to Hardy County, where Wauchula, you've got a heavy shower over you in US 17. Sulphur Springs, this is well to your north for now, but it is something that we'll be watching to see if it does stick around. Downtown Arcadia, I was looking at your camera just a moment ago. Raindrops beginning to appear on that one. This right down US 17. More spotty coverage here in DeSoto County. And then back out to the coastline. Venice, South Venice, Gulf Gate Estates in Sarasota. Not seeing a lot of lightning with these. In fact, I'm going to flip on our lightning detector if I can and see if we get any strikes. Nothing going here out of coastal Sarasota and coastal Manatee County, also not showcasing any lightning strikes with these showers and storms. Earlier today, we had some rain near Bradenton. That has since fizzled away. A new cell has just popped up over St. Pete. At the start of the show, this was a small blip on the radar, and now it has upticked quite a bit. No lightning strikes out of it yet, but I suspect we might get a few here momentarily. This is right over the downtown area and basically stationary, so what that tells me is this could backbuild out of the center. That tells me Gulfport, Kenneth City, and Shore Acres. Well, I can't guarantee you're going to see some rain from this. This could go in any which one of those directions, bringing those heavy showers to you next. It is right along 275 there, entering into southern Pinellas County. Farther north, Citrus Park, Carrollwood getting in on some of that rain as well. No lightning within these showers, but these are now sliding to the south and east. In general, on the north side of the bay, Oldsmar, the rain over you weakening. This is all moving into the West Chase area, closer to town and country. And bigger view, just so we zoom out and get an idea of where everything else is. Polk County, more rain chances also developing out your way. Most of the county dry for now. Polk City and closer view here, north of Haines City. We've got spots like Davenport. We can put a few others on the map. Holiday Manor seeing some of that light rain as well. Notice this lightning detector not doing a lot of work because there's just no lightning to track. Showers and storms that we'll be tracking for the rest of today will likely be on the weaker side. Yesterday we had only one that briefly got to a state where it could produce those winds over 40 miles per hour, but otherwise they have been pretty mild-mannered and tame. I'm going to get up the Fox model so we can time out the rest of your evening. Taking me off the screen so you get a better view here. Looking ahead Friday at 4, 5, 6 o'clock. More spotty activity, but notice the coastline beginning to dry things out. So if you're in Pinellas County, you got to feel a little bit better about the forecast moving into 6 to 7 p.m. As we move into 8 p.m., in general, the activity that pushes inland starts to weaken. Isolated storms still in the forecast, but coverage down to probably 10%. We're basically dry across the board moving into 11 to midnight tonight. Now, I mentioned the lack of rain chances attributed to some drier air aloft. All that deep tropical moisture we were tracking 3 to 4 days ago has slid up into the southeast United States, and we're seeing that drier air intruding in from the south and east. Interesting to watch that trend because in the days ahead, we will be watching for Hurricane Erin to pass off the east side of our state. And while you don't see it now, there it is. It's hard to miss in this graphic. It'll go right up the east side, staying well off our shoreline, but on the north side of that system, it's looking increasingly likely to drag in some drier air back into the forecast. I'm going to get back to that graphic just so you can see it once again, churn up the coast, likely staying east of the Bahamas, but definitely bringing them some impacts in terms of the waves that this will be producing. And then on the west side of this storm, look at the drier air that funnels in from the northeast down to the southwest. That's going to drop our rain chances substantially as we head into next week. Already those chances down to 40%, but look at the latest 7-day, and that's reflected in next week's forecast already. We've dropped those odds on Wednesday into Thursday to 30%. They could come down even farther. We will be watching Erin in the Atlantic and in general just watching the tropics for the next few weeks as we approach the climatological peak of the Atlantic hurricane season. No major impacts, though, with regards to Erin for us here in the Tampa Bay area. This is going to pass off the East Coast where it will create some large swells. We talked about that earlier in the newscast. But for now, I'm going to send it to a quick break. When we return, we'll check in with the radar one last time and get you a closer look again at the new updates coming in from Hurricane Erin. So we haven't had a lot of rain today, but the spots that have seen those showers have picked up maybe a quarter of an inch to a half an inch of rainfall for the most part. These are the radar estimated rainfall totals so far, just over the last 6 hours. There has not been a lot thus far. I think into the evening, this map will fill out a little bit more. We'll see probably 30% of this map with some form of blue or green on it, maybe more than that. But regardless, nothing in comparison to the big downpours we traditionally see when our more robust sea breeze boundaries are kicking up stronger thunderstorms along our coastal counties or inland zones. In the meantime, expect lower rain chances for the next few days. New update now on Hurricane Erin. I just wanted to let you know that those winds are still at 75 miles per hour as of that 2 p.m. advisory. The pressure dropping now to 993 millibars, which tells me it is still strengthening. It'll be entering into those warm waters before taking a turn back to the north, and the entirety of that forecast track is currently off the coast of the United States by some distance. This is not going to be a Florida storm. I want to show you the forecast uncertainty just to really lock in how we're feeling with this. These are the American and European model ensembles. Basically, the American and European model rerun multiple times, changing just a few scenarios here and there to generate a projected outcome with this storm. And notice all of them are exclusively off the coast of Florida. I believe that there are over 60 here on the screens. This should reassure your confidence here. It's as it gets a little bit closer to the Carolinas, we'll be watching to see how that the impacts could range from just a powerful hurricane off the east coast of the United States. Even if it stays well off the shoreline, we could see some big swells there. Additionally, rip currents will be a problem along the east coast, potentially as far south as Florida. Either way, in the short term, I'm actually going to punch this back up on the screen. Here's what we know. The first hurricane of the season, Erin, has formed, and the track has remained largely unchanged from what we saw yesterday, just still projecting a major hurricane by the weekend, and then that northward turn where folks in Bermuda will need to pay close attention to it from that point onward. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to SkyTower Weather Now. I'm going to get that 7-day forecast back on the screen and leave you with it in case you have any plans. You're checking in for your weekend forecast, for instance, Saturday and Sunday. It's going to be hot, but those rain chances will be suppressed. I'll see you again on Monday. It'll actually be Valerie Mills doing the 3 o'clock show. Thanks again for tuning in.
You will be part of our coverage here in the evening, getting everybody ready for the big in-demand news conference that will be happening. So, Andrew Kraft, thank you so much for joining me as we just really saw history in the making in Alaska.
Definitely. I'll see everyone at 6 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much, Andrew. All right, everyone. Before we go to a break, I do see some of the tape playback that we are seeing a little bit better quality that no doubt is going to be played out here in moments. So before we go to a break, I'll just stay on this shot as we wait for the team members to play this out. Remember, it's very, very brief. It's just a moment for pictures to be taken and the first initial video of this summit to really kick off in Alaska. But you are watching live now from Fox. We, of course, will continue to bring you the coverage and the details of this summit as it does progress. And then, of course, later tonight, the full joint news conference. You will see it all here on Live Now from Fox, so you don't really have to go anywhere this afternoon or evening. We will be your destination for the summit and all the details to come out of it. But again, the stage is set for the joint news conference, and we will just be seeing in moments a little bit more of that play out. It was hard to see the first time we played it out because they were just showcasing it live, but again, because the signal might have been just a little bit not the best, but here is just a freeze frame of that, and you see President Trump and Putin sitting there, and then you have Rubio and Witkoff to the right there, as well as a translator that is right next to President Trump. More questions were asked to the two leaders. Nothing was said, but let's listen in. All right, at this moment, they are playing out no audio associated with this, but you see President Trump and Putin just listening to the reporters ask questions, really scream out the questions, just trying to get some reaction from either Trump or Putin. But we just cannot hear right now just because they are not playing out any of the audio associated with this right now. I'm looking on all the different channels, and we do not have that at this moment. But we'll keep an eye on it for you here on Live Now from Fox. You're taking a look here of our coverage. Thanks so much for being a part with us, and you will continue to see all of the highlights and, of course, the joint news conference a little bit later. We'll take a 2-minute break. We'll be back with more on Live Now from Fox. And welcome back to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks again for joining us. As we just saw moments ago, President Trump and President Putin together in the room now where the summit will be taking place a little bit later. And then, of course, the joint news conference will be happening as well. And we've been just seeing just some of the playback right now there. We're trying to work on the audio issue because on that playback we were not getting it back, but we are going to see if they will be playing that out maybe just one more time with the audio, because there was a lot of questions being asked, and you see that from time to time where the media just trying to get some sort of reaction from either Trump or Putin, maybe the both of them, no doubt. But here is the stage later where the two leaders will have that highly, highly in-demand joint news conference that we will be bringing you, of course, full coverage today on, and really throughout the day, afternoon and evening. We will also have insight from analysts joining us to give us their perspective as well, learn some of maybe the latest details of what is coming out, and maybe hearing just a little bit more about the plans for both the United States side as Russia and really ultimately Ukraine, as they are sitting back, not by choice, but sitting back and just waiting for the updates to come from this meeting, as no doubt the future hangs in the balance right now of really going forward, how this will all continue or hopefully end the war in Ukraine. So we'll be definitely keeping an eye on that here for you. Just again, some more playback is being shown of President Trump and Putin just moments ago, just the early stages of this meeting that will be taking place. Lunch will be served as well, so the leaders will be having that with their teams. But still, the audio not being played right here. But not much was said from the two leaders, but just the questions were coming. So we will be waiting for that, of course, right here on Live Now from Fox. You are watching as we are really watching history as well, and you have a front row seat to it all in Alaska, and we will be bringing it to you live, raw, and unfiltered. We'll take a 2-minute break. We'll be back with more on Live Now. And welcome back to Live Now from Fox, everyone. I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks again for joining us as we bring you the very, very latest from the summit in Alaska. Later today, the joint news conference is set, and we will be bringing you that coverage between President Trump and President Putin. In the meantime, I do want to showcase my colleague Josh Breslow's interview with the governor of Alaska, as Alaska, of course, front and center of this summit. Let's listen in here on Live Now.
On the dot over on the East Coast and 7 o'clock on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here for the next several hours to bring you all of your top stories, live events, and breaking news from across the country and across the world. I do want to get to our big story right now as you take a live look out of Anchorage, Alaska. President Trump in the air aboard Air Force One en route to his historic face-to-face meeting with Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Trump does have a goal of ending the years-long war with Ukraine and says this will lay the groundwork for all of that. The president adding he will know within just minutes whether this will be a good or bad meeting and if Putin is serious about a peace deal. The meeting between the two leaders as of now is set for 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. That would be 11:30 a.m. local time if my conversion there is correct. Alaska's Governor Mike Dunleavy joining us now live ahead of that chat here. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us this morning.
It's great to be on, Josh. Thanks for having me. Busy day today.
Yeah, and first off, because we know this is a very busy day, can you kind of break down your thoughts as you heard that Anchorage, Alaska was going to be used for these talks?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. We're the most strategic state in the country. Our location on the globe being about 7 hours from Moscow by air, about 6 hours from Washington D.C. by air. So it makes sense to have it here. We are the Arctic state for America. We are the North Pacific and Western Pacific state for America. And again, President Trump really loves Alaska. President Trump, we have an executive order that he put together for the state of Alaska. Is really focused on our natural resources, including our natural gas pipeline that's moving forward. So makes a lot of sense to have it here. We're looking forward to hosting President Trump, and hopefully some good things come out of these discussions.
What can you tell me about the base where this is going to be held? Again, you can see that live image right there on the left-hand side of your screen, and why that was chosen specifically.
Well, it's in Anchorage. The base is in Anchorage, our largest city. It's a well-staffed, well-maintained base. Alaska really is the true fort for North America. Our assets here are not really just for training. They're actually for deployment. We live in a tough neighborhood. Russia is only 2.5 miles between an American island and a Russian island, 50 miles between the mainland. We are under the North Korean missile umbrella. The Chinese ply our waters with warships. So we're in a dangerous neighborhood, but we have a robust military capability. And I have to say, most Alaskans sleep well at night knowing that our military is here.
What are the main goals overall of these discussions here between Trump and Putin? And what role is Alaska overall playing in facilitating that discussion?
Well, we've worked with the White House and their ground team that got up here on Saturday. And we've been working with them ever since to secure locale. Makes sense to have it on the base. The base is secure. The base has a lot of space for meetings, a lot of space for staff. The airport's right there with the military base. And so all of it makes sense to have it here. We have the resources. We have the assets to assist the president with this trip. And, you know, again, I think we're all curious as to how this goes. I think the president, as he says, will find out very quickly whether Putin is serious or not. And that'll set the stage for future meetings and future actions.
As far as security and logistics, that's, of course, a big question whenever you have President Trump visiting, but then you're also talking about Russian President Vladimir Putin. So what sort of security and logistics went into all of this for folks there in Alaska?
You know, the announcement didn't give people much time to prepare, but I got to say the White House staff has been great. They really check things out. And again, being on a military base, it's secure to begin with. But now there's a lot of security that has come up from Washington. Our assets, as far as our state troopers and others in Alaska, are helping as well. And so I don't anticipate any incidents. I anticipate the ability for President Trump and Putin to sit down and talk uninterrupted, no disruptions. I think they're going to have a pretty good talk. Again, where it leads to, we're going to have to find out. But I really believe President Trump is sincere in stopping this war. However, it has to be on just terms. I think everyone agrees with that. So this is a beginning. Hopefully, it leads to an end of this war.
What has the reaction been from the majority of folks there in Alaska about this visit from President Trump and Putin, and all of that happening there, as you mentioned, in Anchorage?
Yeah, I think the vast majority of Alaskans welcome President Trump here, welcome this summit here. Again, Alaska is the international state, to be honest with you, in our location where we are on the globe. We deal with the Pacific all the time. We deal with the Arctic all the time. And so we're very used to our neighbors. But at the same time, Alaskans love it when the president comes up here. And the president, you know, he's been up here frequently. When he's going to Asia, he stops at the same base to refuel. He did that several times his first term. He's back here again. I anticipate over the next 3.5 years, he'll be up in Alaska a lot. And again, President Trump has a real affinity for our great state. And being the only state with an executive order that he issued, I think makes all of us proud that he's coming up here.
Does this kind of give maybe some more exposure